Hello and welcome to Political Adda with me, Sharan Poovanna, and ThePrint's political editor, DK Singh. The campaigning for the May 10th Assembly elections is on its last leg, with barely a week to go before polling day. And today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. James Manor, an eminent political scientist, emeritus professor of the Commonwealth Studies at the University of London, and author of the book Broadening and Deepening Democracy, that focuses on the political innovation in Karnataka and its politics in the 1970s and 80s. We have with us Professor Manor, and let's hear what Professor Manor has to say about these high decibel elections in Karnataka. Professor, I'd like to start with your interest in Karnataka. How did you come about, to focus so much of your research on Karnataka over these years?
Well, I went there as a student in 1970, long ago, and became fascinated by the history and politics and society of the state. I learned Kannada, which in a way bound me to Karnataka. And of course, it's a very distinctive state with very specific qualities and trends and history. And all of that fascinated me. So that's how it happened.
I have been seeing your interviews the other day. I think today only you had one interview in Times of India, and you have been actually pretty clued into what is happening in Karnataka today. So can you share with us your assessment of Karnataka elections?
Well, this election is part of a trend where ruling parties have great difficulty getting re-elected. This has not happened since 1985, so that many state elections have passed with the ruling parties being rejected by the people. The people are sophisticated, impatient, and they assert themselves at election time. This election, again, looks like the ruling party may have difficulty being re-elected, partly because of that tradition, but also because of some of the perhaps miscalculations by the BJP government. We don't know for sure because many different opinion polls point in different directions. Some are more reliable than others, but the overall picture is highly complicated, but it does appear that the ruling party this time again may fail to win the election.
BJP chief strategist, India's Home Minister Amit Shah, he said in an interview a couple of days back that the party will be winning 15 seats more than the majority mark, that is 128 seats. Now, he's not somebody who is known to stick his neck out if he has any doubts. So, for instance, when we had elections in Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, he was never getting into those number games. Now, he's quite assertive this time. Now, last week I was in Karnataka and I was in the Congress war room talking to people, and they have been conducting daily surveys. Now, Congress's daily surveys also put the figures somewhere around 110. So both parties seem to be very confident. And do you see the election becoming such a close contest this time?
Possibly. It depends on what happens partly in southern Karnataka, in old Mysore, where the Congress is hard at work trying to win seats back from the Janata Dal Secular, the JDS, the third party main party in the contest. And a great deal will depend on what happens in northern and central Karnataka in the rural districts there, because it's in rural northern and central Karnataka that state elections are usually won and lost. And it appears to be true this time. In the north and in central Karnataka, the BJP is attempting to sustain its popularity amongst Lingayats, amongst ritually left-hand Dalits who have traditionally supported the BJP, and to pick up some OBC votes as well. But the factional fighting within the BJP is causing serious problems there. The complicated campaign of the BJP stressing on the one hand hardline Hindutva, on the other hand attempting to maintain its old caste coalition of Lingayats and certain Dalits, this divided campaign by the BJP may entail contradictions. It will certainly create factional disputes within the party. Some people in the BJP, prominent people like Mr. Yediyurappa, the former chief minister, are against the Hindutva effort that has been promoted. Mr. Yediyurappa has spoken openly about it. This kind of division in the party may hurt the BJP. So we will have to see how that plays out. Congress may make gains in northern and central Karnataka.
For the last 2-3 weeks, the BJP seemed to be staying away from what you call hardcore Hindutva issues. It was focusing on castes. But after the Congress released its manifesto yesterday, where it actually bracketed Bajrang Dal with PFI, again, the BJP is back with the Hindutva plank. So you had the Prime Minister talking Hindutva nationalism, in fact. You had the Prime Minister accusing the Congress of appeasing terror and terrorists and insulting Lord Hanuman. Do you see this Hindutva plank work in Karnataka? And historically, if you look at it, how do you see this playing out?
Historically, robust, hardline Hindutva has had little appeal across Karnataka, except in some pockets, except in the small coastal belt where it has had some support, and in certain urban centers, Bangalore, for example, Hubli, Dharwar area, to some extent, it has taken root. But in general, the Hindutva message has had little impact in Karnataka, and Karnataka's social history, in which tolerance, moderation between various social groups, not just minorities and Hindus, but different caste groups. There's a moderation in relations between social groups, which impedes Hindutva. So I think the Hindutva message may be a miscalculation. We will hear more of that message from Yogi Adityanath and from some strong Hindutva advocates within the BJP, within Karnataka. But I don't know that this will win the party many votes. I think other issues may predominate.
You have been watching Karnataka politics for the last 4 decades, at least?
No. 5.
5. So, how do you see the politics in Karnataka changing over the decades? Decades like, from 80s to what we are witnessing now?
Well, a big change took place in 1972. Between independence and 1972, Lingayats and Wakalagas, the 2 dominant landed caste groups, dominated not only the land and the villages, but they dominated state politics as well. They translated local dominance into state-level dominance. In 1972, Devaraj Urs came into the picture, and he gambled that by appealing to the other groups in society, the disadvantaged groups in society, who outnumber the Lingayats and Wakalagas, he gambled that he could win power, and he succeeded and broke the dominance of the landed groups. Since then, the rules have changed in Karnataka politics. You cannot rely only on the dominant landowning groups. You have to have rainbow coalitions, alliances of different social groups in order to win power and to retain power. Another big change took place during the 1990s when Lingayats became offended by Rajiv Gandhi's rather abrupt dismissal of a Lingayat chief minister, Virendra Patil. And the Lingayat resentment against Congress has persisted until now. This is bad news for Congress in northern and parts of central Karnataka, where Lingayats are present in great numbers and still have great economic power. And gradually, during the 1990s, the support of Lingayats swung to the BJP, which began to emerge on that social base. So the BJP then became a major force in Karnataka, not so much because of Hindutva, but because of its strong caste support, especially, but not only, from Lingayats. So those are the two kind of big sea changes that have happened in Karnataka's politics. And the other thing is, of course, that governments, even governments which function very well, keep getting rejected at state elections by the people who want change and who see that there is an alternative to whoever is in power. The third thing to say is that the Janata Dal Secular, the JDS, has retained a great deal of influence in the southern districts of old Mysore, in Bangalore and south of Bangalore. And they don't have enough support, mainly from the Wakalaga community, with Mr. Devegowda leading the JDS. They don't have enough support to win a majority, but they have succeeded in winning substantial minorities of seats and creating hung state assemblies and using that leverage to enter government, to take power in coalition with other parties. So that's the general picture.
Yeah. So you've just mentioned about the Lingayats and the Vakaligas and how political parties have used, some of these caste backings in order to further their own agendas. But do you think caste as a whole, as a society, from the society itself now, is is using politics to further their own agendas, and caste has become far more prominent in Karnataka's politics now?
I don't know that it has become more prominent. There are also lots of other issues involved in state elections: the performance of government, the delivery of goods and services, whether or not a government is corrupt, whether a government appeals to the rural sentiments that predominate at election time. And we have some evidence to indicate from this election that class or the economic position of different groups is also quite important, so that it appears that members of disadvantaged groups, people with little income and a few assets, that they are tending towards Congress, just whatever caste they belong to. And so there is this, we might call it a class element in the story as well. I should say that Mr. Siddharamaiah, who's a Congress leader, the former chief minister, has pushed an agenda favoring poorer groups and disadvantaged groups very strongly, rather like Mr. Devaraj Urs did in the 70s. And Siddharamaiah has had great appeal amongst the OBCs who have great numerical strength. The problem for him and for anybody appealing to OBCs in any Indian state is that the OBCs are not a solid block of support. They tend to fragment and go to different parties. And so but the appeal to poorer people through Mr. Siddharamaiah's program has a lot of strength to it. And we have one opinion poll that seems to be reliable, which indicates that poorer people tend to strongly towards Congress, and the more prosperous people tend more towards the BJP. So there is a kind, and that is true no matter which caste group they come from. So Siddharamaiah believes, for example, that poorer members of the Wakalaga community and some poorer members of the Lingayat community may support Congress because of this economic appeal of his program. So caste is there, inevitably. It doesn't go away, but I'm not sure it's stronger. It's just there alongside these other things.
Also, I mean, we've seen, was 2018 elections when Siddaramaiah was, trying to get a second term in office. Was this, sort of a reaction to the OBC, his appealing to the backward classes and the poorer sections, and the Lingayats and Vokkaligas asserting themselves? Was the result an indication of that?
Yes, to some extent. Siddaramaiah succeeded in winning support from many OBC groups, but not from all. And the Congress and the BJP were busy, the BJP and the JDS were busy seeking OBC votes. The JDS was busy seeking Muslim votes, to whom Siddaramaiah had also appealed. And we find that if we look at Dalit voters in Karnataka, a very significant proportion of the population, Dalit votes tend to be split roughly into two roughly equal groups, with the ritually left-hand Dalits tending to support the BJP and ritually right-hand Dalits, of whom Mr. Karge is a member, supporting the Congress. And so Dalit votes, Siddaramaiah reached out to Dalits with his pro-poor program, but not all of them responded. So it's very complicated. And 2018 saw Congress fall short, partly for that reason.
Professor Manor, I have been struggling to understand this SC left, SC right divide. But we are told that, SC right is largely Ambedkar right, and SC left is follows Jagjeevan Ram, and then SC left is economically poor. So, can you tell us about this division?
Well, it's what you say is I think accurate for many people, although a lot of the Dalits may not identify specifically with Jagjeevan Ram or with Dr. Ambedkar, but they may cling to a sense of solidarity, caste solidarity, whatever their philosophical background may be. But this right-left division in Karnataka is quite a stubborn thing. It doesn't seem to change, even though politicians on both sides try to break it down to some extent. Now, I should say that the relations between right and left-hand Dalits in Karnataka are not as conflict prone and not as bitter as the similar division between right and left-hand Dalits in Andhra Pradesh, in the in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. There, the division is extremely conflictual, and in Karnataka, the division is less bitter, and Karnataka politics, for complicated historical reasons, tends to be more moderate. It tends to have less bitterness in it, and for this reason, that division doesn't result in violence or really extreme conflict. But the division is there, and it seems to come forward at election time very strongly, so that the Dalit split is another complication in the state's politics.
Because there is near unanimity when we talk to politicians in Karnataka that SC right largely votes for the Congress and SC left for the BJP. How do you explain that?
Well, I think that in the 90s, when the Lingayats were forming a strong support base for the BJP and under the leadership of Mr. Yediyurappa, the BJP in that period and Yediyurappa himself were very careful about trying to win over the left-hand Dalits. At the same time, very prominent congressmen emerged from the right-hand group, not least Mr. Karge, who is now the national president of the Congress Party, and they managed to maintain a strong connection with the right-hand group, partly in reaction to the left-hand group's swing towards the BJP. So this Congress has always had a couple of left-hand Dalit politicians in its leadership, and the BJP has reached out to right-hand Dalits with a few leaders from that side, but it doesn't seem to persuade either group to change its loyalties.
So now that you have a Dalit national president of the Congress, Mallikarjun Kharge, do you see that divide shrinking a bit because of that?
Possibly, but I don't think it will make much difference. The division is very stubborn. I remember being in Karnataka, rural Karnataka, at a time in the late 1970s when it seemed possible that Mr. Jagjeevan Ram would become the prime minister. He did not become prime minister, but it looked like a possibility. And I spoke to some Dalit villagers in northern Karnataka, and I said, this is happening. You may have a Dalit prime minister very soon. And they said to me, is he right or left? They weren't concerned so much about being a Dalit prime minister as the right-left division. This is a very stubborn, deep tendency, and Mr. Kharge will win some Dalit votes from the left-hand group, but I think his principal contribution to this campaign is different, and it's a significant contribution. Mr. Kharge will make sure that the national leaders of Congress do not send to Karnataka incompetent leaders to oversee the election campaign. Congress has a history of incompetent leadership being imposed, supervision being imposed from the high command. And this has damaged Congress in the past. Mr. Kharge knows about that, and he's, I'm sure, carefully avoiding the imposition of incompetent guidance from New Delhi, from the national level. That, I think, will be his more important contribution than winning over left-hand Dalits.
Professor, just to get some historical perspective, I was pretty young when Devraj Urs was at the helm, or Ramakrishna Hegde was at the helm. How has the politics changed, and how are these politicians, and how are the politicians now? What kind of difference do you see in their politics, say, and now what we witness here in Karnataka?
I'm not sure there are radical differences. For example, Mr. Siddharamaya's Ahinda program to appeal to disadvantaged groups, including Muslims and Dalits and OBCs, his program looks a lot like the program that Mr. Devraj Urs developed in the 1970s. This is not an accident. He knows very well that history. And I think that sort of appeal is there. What is perhaps new since the 90s is the strength of the Hindu right, of the BJP, as a significant force in the state's politics. But I don't know that huge amounts have changed since the 90s, since the emergence of the BJP, which was an important change. I should say that I knew Mr. Devraj Urs very well, and Mr. Hegde as well, and they were brilliant politicians, brilliant operators, and there were other people in different parties at that time. Mr. Devagowda is a much underestimated leader. These are very high quality leaders, and I think that the Congress today, especially, and the JDS today, continue to have leaders of brilliance, real brilliance. I don't know that that is so true of the BJP. Mr. Yediyurappa dominated the BJP, utterly dominated it, until very recently. He was very autocratic. He made many miscalculations. He was rather inept at times. He was also quite statesmanlike in his treatment of minorities. But Mr. Yediyurappa, I would not describe as a brilliant politician. And the successors to him, both Mr. Bommai and the Hindutva Brigade, who have achieved prominence in the BJP very lately in this drive for polarization. I don't think that the quality of of management, the insights, the planning that these leaders bring to the BJP matches up to the brilliant traditions that we find in Congress and the JDS in now and historically.
Do you think removing Yediyurappa as the chief minister was a mistake or was the right thing to do for the BJP?
It was, in some ways, a sensible thing to do because Mr. Yediyurappa is very autocratic. He has never listened to subordinates. He has never listened to advice from anyone, and he has very unrealistic expectations. And this gets the BJP into trouble time and again since the 1990s. So removing him removed somebody who was perhaps not top quality as a leader. On the other hand, removing Mr. Yediyurappa risked losing support from Lingayats, who regard him as their great hero in politics. Mr. Bommai is an intelligent person who has a reasonably good record in second level jobs over the years, but he was not seen by Lingayats as a compelling figure, and he was then subjected to the imposition of a Hindutva campaign, which he did not necessarily welcome, and that undermined his authority further, so that authority tended to flow to national level leaders in the BJP. So the BJP, by removing Yediyurappa, created a situation in which the state level leadership was not convincing to BJP members or to Lingayats. And this, in that sense, it was probably a mistake. So it was a complicated choice, and we will find out soon enough whether it paid off.
Just about that Lingayat, question that you just said. We've seen, the Congress going on about how Yediyurappa was ill-treated, in the BJP. He was removed as chief minister and then replaced by another Lingayat, Bommai, who's not very popular, at least among the Lingayat, as not considered a community leader. Then you had, Mr. Jagdish Shettar, a former chief minister, also now moving to the Congress, and then some other prominent leaders like Lakshman Savdi and Yadavad and others also now slowly moving or denied tickets. Now, do you think any of this is enough for the Lingayats to actually consider Congress as an option after Virendra Patil's incident?
Yes, it may persuade some Lingayats to switch to Congress or simply not to vote as enthusiastically as they have in the past. It appears that the ill treatment of Mr. Shettar, the former Lingayat chief minister for the BJP's exclusion of him from the candidates list and his move to Congress, it appears that this will not necessarily have a widespread impact amongst Lingayats. The best analysts of northern Karnataka politics believe that Shettar's influence is largely confined to his own constituency and nearby areas. So it may not cause big problems. It may not mean that large numbers of Lingayats shift to Congress. That's one of the big unknowns in this election that we have to wait and see. But I think another aspect of this, which is connected to these decisions, is that the BJP took power in Karnataka by way of an Operation Kamala or Operation Lotus. That is to say, the BJP used inducements to persuade MLAs from the Congress party and to some extent the JDS to defect to the BJP, so that the BJP then got a majority in the state. Now, that's the second time this has happened in Karnataka. It's a habit with the BJP nationally under the present leadership. And it's a habit that enables the BJP to get instant gratification. They instantly take power in a state, but it also means that you then have within the BJP conflict between the defectors, the newcomers, and the old loyalists who believe they really should have the rewards of office rather than these turncoats. And this conflict is a serious matter in the BJP today. And it may be that that kind of conflict, which we don't see in the other major parties, will damage the BJP more than the exclusion of someone like Mr. Shettar.
Switching from the Lingayats to another dominant community, Vocaligas, do you see the Vocaligas looking at DK Shivakumar as an alternative to Devegowda?
Well, this is another big unknown. Shivakumar is, and again, we have to wait and see. Mr. Shivakumar is a Wakaliga leader. He is relatively new to the front rank, unlike Mr. Devegowda, who's been there since the 70s, and unlike Mr. Kumaraswamy, the son of Devegowda, who has been chief minister and has been around for a longer period. These people have solid records and have long had solid support from many Wakaligas. But there is within the BJP a lot of there is within the Janata Dal, the JDS, Devegowda's party, a lot of unhappiness about the increasing prominence and dominance within the party of the Devegowda family. We've also seen conflict within the Devegowda family, disputes over who gets what seat and that kind of thing. And this has caused some people in the JDS to defect, some leaders to defect to other parties. It has also caused the JDS to lose some special elections and some elections to the Legislative Council in Karnataka in recent months. So the JDS may be waning now, it may be in decline, and Mr. Shivakumar for Congress may be able to attract some Wakaliga votes as a result of all of that. So we'll just have to wait and see. But it would be a mistake to write off and dismiss the JDS. They have a record of winning at least 20 or 25 seats in a House of 244. And if they win that many, then they may hold the balance of power again.
And also, I mean, we've seen the Prime Minister, we've seen Amit Shah, we've seen a lot of these leaders now try and break into the old Mysuru region and the Vocaliga vote bank. Now, do you see the Vocaligas at any time considering the BJP as an option as well?
In some pockets, they have done that. But for the most part, the answer is no. For the most part, the BJP will struggle in Old Mysore and the southern districts to make many gains. They have S.M. Krishna in their group, having left Congress to join them, but I don't think he really has much influence there. I think it's largely going to be a struggle between Congress and JDS.
What if Vocaliga votes get split between the Congress and the JDS? Will it not help the BJP?
It could help in a few seats, but the BJP doesn't really have convincing candidates in most of the old Mysore districts. I should say that there is within the area around the city of Mysore, in the rural areas, there are significant numbers of Lingayats. It's a curious area where Wakaligas are not present in such great strength, but and there the Lingayat votes may swing a few seats to the BJP, but I don't think the BJP is going to make significant gains in the south.
Also, I have my last question before Sharan, before I'll pass it on to Sharan. This time, I just said last week I was in Karnataka, and there was a lot of talk about the role of money. So whichever party is able to put in more resources will have an advantage towards the end. How was it in, say, 1970s, 80s, and 90s in Karnataka?
Well, we have never seen anything like what we see today. What I don't just mean that there's more money in politics. Today, one party, the BJP, has vastly more money than all other parties put together. At the 2019 election, national election, the BJP had 18 times more money to spend than all other parties put together. And since then, the electoral bonds and other devices have increased the inequality between the BJP and all of the other parties put together. So we do not have anymore in India or in Karnataka, we do not have a level playing field at election time. But this may not change the result in Karnataka or, for that matter, across India. If we look at state elections in India since 1980, across the whole country, the parties which have had the most money at state elections have lost 70% of the time. So that the anti-incumbency tendencies across India have minimized the impact of money. And as a result of this, I don't expect the enormous advantage which the BJP has in money to decide this election. I would be, it would go against everything we know from the last 40 years.
Just one more question. The BJP is hoping a lot from Prime Minister Narendra Modi's campaigns in Karnataka. I mean, how much impact do you see the Prime Minister making there?
Well, the Prime Minister is a very dramatic, effective campaigner, and that will have some impact. But the Karnataka voters have consistently, on many elections, demonstrated that they distinguish between state-level politics and national-level politics, and between state-level leaders and national-level leaders. And the most dramatic, this has been true for decades. For example, and the most dramatic example of all, 1984, December, the Lok Sabha election took place immediately after the assassination of Indira Gandhi. Rajiv Gandhi benefited from a big sympathy vote. And in Karnataka, the Congress led by Rajiv Gandhi won 27 out of 28 seats. It swept the state at the Lok Sabha election in December. The government in Karnataka at that time was a Janata government led by Ramakrishna Hegde. He was forced by defections to Congress to go for a state election within 9 weeks of the Lok Sabha election. At the state election, only 9 weeks after Rajiv Gandhi swept Karnataka, 105 out of 224 constituencies in Karnataka swung from the Congress to the Janata Party, and Hegde's Janata defeated Congress astonishingly in that election. Hegde went around, I talked to him about this, he went around the state saying, listen, people, whatever happens in this election, if Congress wins this election, Rajiv Gandhi will not be coming to Karnataka to be chief minister. And Mr. Siddaramaiah and Mr. Shivakumar have been saying the same thing about Mr. Modi will not become the chief minister of Karnataka. It will be somebody else. And this, I think, will register with the Karnataka voters. They know what the differences are.
So about the caste part, I mean, just coming back to the Lingayat and Vokkaligas, we've seen Bommai and the BJP take a very, a big decision where they removed the Muslims out of the backward classes list and took their reservation quota and distributed it equally to the Vokkaligas and Lingayats. It's one is to cement the support from the Lingayats, and the other is to reach out to the Vokkaligas. Do you think such reservation sort of moves help the BJP in any manner, or will it backfire?
It may not backfire, although a number of people who are not number of Hindu leaders and voters have been indicating that they find that it's not fair to take the reservation provisions away from the Muslims. But I think this will not have a major impact, I don't think, partly because each of the landed groups, the Wakalis and the Gayats, are only getting an extra 2% under this plan, and partly because a lot of people understand that the courts will never permit this plan to be implemented. This plan will be ruled out for legal reasons, as such plans have been ruled out elsewhere as well. And so what it is, this new policy of the government is really a gesture that will have no real world impact. So I really don't think that this change will benefit the BJP very much.
And also, we've seen, you spoke about Hindutva and how Hindutva has worked only in a few pockets. So has this sort of forced BJP that, takes Hindutva as a very big platform in several other North Indian states, but to change their strategy in Karnataka where they have to come back and focus on caste before Hindutva?
Well, that would be, if the BJP is interested in winning the election, that would be the sensible thing to do. And we have seen a little of that in recent weeks with Yediyurappa and others getting more prominence and making the old caste-based appeals. But we also have the Prime Minister coming, we have Amit Shah coming and making speeches that are not empty of Hindutva. We have Yogi Adityanath in the airplane heading to Karnataka to make speeches which will be very, I think, incendiary in his tradition. And we have several people in Karnataka, two members of parliament who are fire-breathing Hindutva advocates, and we have senior figures in the state-level party who are very strong Hindutva advocates, and they have not gone quiet. So that I don't think the de-emphasis on Hindutva, which would probably be sensible for the BJP, I don't think that's happening.
And for the big question, of course, what are your predictions for the May 13th when counting actually happens?
It's very difficult to make predictions. The most reliable opinion polls by CSDS Lokniti never predict seat totals, because they know that if you try to move from vote percentages to seat totals, you're taking big risks and things go wrong a lot. So it's very difficult to predict this, but there are enough indications from the ground and from some opinion polls which are reasonably reliable that the Congress is going to make significant gains, and the BJP is going to take some losses. The JDS may take some significant losses in the southern districts. So my guess is that Congress will probably come first and perhaps have a majority. They need a significant majority in the House if they're to avoid another Operation Kamala by the BJP and its friends. But I think Congress will outstrip the other two parties. Whether it gets a majority or not, and whether it gets a safe majority is an open question. I think there's a good chance that it will, but who knows? There are too many unknowns.
So, Mr. Kumaraswamy to be CM again if no party gets a majority?
Possibly. One thing to say about that is that Mr. Devagowda will never make a deal with the BJP again, he says, and I think he's speaking the truth. And so it might be a Congress JDS coalition government, but I have a feeling JDS may suffer enough losses that won't happen. I don't know.
Thank you so much, Professor Manor. It was a very, very enlightening conversation, taking us back all the way to the 1970s, Karnataka politics, the history, and the resonance it has with today's, politics in Karnataka. we hope, we hope to take this conversation forward in any ways we can. And thank you so much for being on The Print, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.